Hey everyone, it's Binu, and if you're like me, you're probably still recovering from the emotional roller coaster that was the COVID-19 pandemic. Just when we thought we were in the clear, news of another outbreak, this time HMPV in China, has everyone on edge. It's a stark reminder that the microbial world is vast, always evolving, and always capable of throwing us a curveball. The truth is, COVID-19 might not be a once-in-a-lifetime event. In fact, experts have their eyes on a whole lineup of diseases with pandemic potential. We're talking about viruses you may have heard of, like Ebola, and some that might be new to you, like the Nipah virus. So in this video, we're going to pull back the curtain on 11 diseases that have scientists and doctors deeply concerned. We'll break down what they are, how they spread, and what kind of threat they pose to global health. Knowledge is power, and by understanding these potential threats, we can be better prepared for whatever comes next. As the world grapples with the HMPV outbreak in China, doctors are sounding the alarm on 11 diseases that could potentially trigger the next pandemic. Let's dive in and understand what these diseases are and why they pose such a threat. First up, we have H5N1, more commonly known as avian or bird flu. Now, you might be thinking, birds? I'm not worried about birds. But here's the thing. H5N1 is incredibly contagious among our feathered friends, and while it usually infects birds, it can and has made the jump to humans. The real kicker with H5N1 is its severity. When it does infect humans, it often leads to severe respiratory illness, and the mortality rate is alarmingly high. We've seen outbreaks in the past, and containing them was no walk in the park. If H5N1 were to mutate and become easily transmissible between humans, it could spell big trouble. Next up is a virus that needs no introduction, Ebola. This one sends chills down everyone's spines, and for good reason. Ebola is notorious for causing hemorrhagic fever, which is essentially internal bleeding, and it has a terrifyingly high fatality rate. We've seen the devastating effects of Ebola outbreaks, particularly in West Africa, and the images are seared into our collective memory. While there are now vaccines and treatments available, the virus remains a significant threat. Its ability to spread rapidly and cause severe illness makes it a top contender for a potential pandemic. Now let's talk about Zika. Unlike Ebola, which is immediately alarming, Zika can be a silent spreader. Transmitted through mosquito bites, many people infected with Zika experience mild or no symptoms at all. But here's the catch. Zika poses a serious threat to pregnant women and their unborn babies. Infection during pregnancy can lead to microcephaly, a birth defect where a baby's head is smaller than expected, and other severe neurological problems. The images of babies born with microcephaly during the 2015 to 2016 Zika outbreak were heartbreaking. While not as immediately deadly as some other viruses on this list, Zika's potential to cause long-term health issues, especially in developing fetuses, makes it a serious global health concern. Moving on to a virus you might not be as familiar with, Nipah virus. This one is a bit of an overachiever in the worst way possible. Nipah can cause a range of illnesses, from respiratory infections to encephalitis, which is inflammation of the brain, and to make matters worse, it has a high mortality rate. The really scary thing about Nipah is that it can be transmitted from animals to humans and also from person to person. We've seen outbreaks in Southeast Asia, and they've been difficult to contain. The fact that Nipah can jump from animals to humans, coupled with its potential to cause severe illness and its ability to spread between people, makes it a serious contender for causing a future pandemic. Remember how I mentioned COVID-19? Well, meet its close relative, MERS-CoV, which stands for Middle East Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus. As the name suggests, it's a respiratory illness, and it can cause severe symptoms, especially in people with underlying health conditions. MERS-CoV first emerged in the Middle East in 2012, and while it hasn't caused a global pandemic like COVID-19, it has caused sporadic outbreaks with a high fatality rate. The fact that it's a coronavirus, a type of virus that's known to mutate, and its ability to cause severe respiratory illness makes it a virus that we need to keep a very close eye on. Speaking of coronaviruses, let's rewind the clock back to 2003, when SARS, or Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome, first emerged. This coronavirus, officially known as SARS-CoV, caused a global outbreak that, while contained, had everyone on high alert. SARS is a respiratory illness and it can cause severe pneumonia, especially in older adults and people with weakened immune systems. While there haven't been any known cases of SARS since 2004, the virus is still out there and there's always a chance it could re-emerge. The fact that it caused a global outbreak before and that it has a higher fatality rate than COVID-19 makes it a virus that we can't afford to forget. Next, we travel to West Africa, where Lassa fever is a major public health concern. This viral hemorrhagic fever, like Ebola, can cause severe bleeding and organ failure. It's often spread through contact with infected rodents or their droppings. What makes Lassa fever particularly challenging is that its symptoms can be quite varied, ranging from mild fever to life-threatening multi-organ failure. This can make it difficult to diagnose and treat promptly. While Lassa fever hasn't yet caused a global pandemic, its high fatality rate in endemic areas and its potential to spread to new regions make it a serious threat. Remember how terrifying Ebola is? Well, meet Marburg virus, its equally deadly cousin. Like Ebola, Marburg causes hemorrhagic fever, which can lead to rapid deterioration and death. The virus is transmitted through contact with infected animals like bats and can spread from person to person through bodily fluids. What makes Marburg virus particularly concerning is its high fatality rate, which can reach up to 90% in some outbreaks. While outbreaks have been relatively limited geographically, the potential for rapid spread and the severity of the illness make Marburg virus a serious pandemic threat. Next up is Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, a viral disease that spread through tick bites. This one's a real globetrotter found in Africa, Asia, the Middle East and parts of Europe. As the name suggests, it causes hemorrhagic fever, which can lead to internal bleeding, organ failure and death. What makes Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever particularly challenging is that it can be difficult to diagnose early on. Symptoms can be non-specific, like fever and muscle aches, and by the time more serious symptoms, like bleeding, develop, it may be too late. The wide geographical distribution of the virus, its high fatality rate, and the lack of effective treatments make it a significant public health concern. Now let's talk about hantavirus, a group of viruses that are carried by rodents, especially deer mice. While infections are relatively rare, they can be severe, leading to respiratory failure and kidney disease. Transmission typically occurs through contact with rodent droppings, urine, or saliva. What makes hantavirus particularly concerning is that there's no specific treatment or cure. Prevention is key, which means avoiding contact with rodents and their droppings. The severity of the illness and the lack of effective treatments make hantavirus a virus that we need to be aware of and take steps to prevent. Last but not least, we have Rift Valley fever, a mosquito-borne viral disease that primarily affects animals but can also infect humans. This one's a double whammy, causing significant economic losses in livestock and posing a serious health risk to humans. Infection in humans can lead to a range of symptoms from mild flu-like illness to severe hemorrhagic fever, encephalitis, and even death. The fact that it affects both animals and humans, its potential to cause severe illness, and its link to mosquito vectors make Rift Valley fever a complex and concerning public health threat. So there you have it, 11 diseases that have the potential to spark the next pandemic. It's a sobering thought, but awareness is key. By understanding these threats, we can advocate for better public health measures, support research for vaccines and treatments, and take steps to protect ourselves and our communities. While these diseases are currently under control, it's crucial to stay informed and prepared. Knowledge is power, and by staying informed, we can help prevent the next pandemic from catching us off guard. Remember, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Stay safe and stay informed.